in my opinion, people just hate bringing consciousness to things because it makes them so accountable.
How did you bring consciousness to it in your 20s?
And when it comes to the alcohol stuff, it's like a lot of people should definitely sign up to your program. That's what they're supposed to do. Like the universe or whatever is putting this opportunity in front of them. And I'm sure there's a gentle nudge to do it, but they're not doing it. If they drink for 3 months, that's going to shorten their lifespan. So it's even worse for what you're doing, which is crazy, man.
All right, welcome to the show. James Swanwick here. And today I am joined with one of my Commonwealth compatriots, I guess you could say.
You could say that.
Yeah. Mitch Wiggins from Vancouver in Canada. And today we're going to be talking about regret. We're going to be talking about breakups. We're talking about commitments, luxury villas. We'll talk about that.
On Netflix.
On Netflix as well. Mitch is a CEO, an investor, and a YouTuber. And he's in his 30s, but really hasn't drunk since his early 20s. We're going to talk a little bit about that because Mitch actually has probably a good decade head start on most of our listeners, I would submit, because you made the choice to stop drinking in your 20s. But anyway, we'll get into all of that. Mitch Wiggins, welcome to the show.
Man, I'm really happy to be here. This is the first podcast ever. So, hey, what an amazing time.
The first podcast interview that you've ever done, ever.
Yes. And I've been invited to many, but for some reason today I'm like, you know what? This feels good. So let's do it.
Well, great to have you here.
Yeah.
So just tell us a little bit about your life now, what you do, where you're from, just so we know a little bit about you, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, well, I'm Canadian. I'm from Vancouver. I think I had a pretty normal upbringing, went to college, thought it was a total waste of time, at least for business wise. Got out of college and I'm like, okay, make money online and travel the world. 2 goals, yeah? So I did all these different things and I ended up working for an agency. I learned some skills and then I started my own business after that. And now I've been traveling for like 2 years, but I'm living in Medellin long term now.
Medellin, Colombia. Yeah. So you're a digital nomad.
Yes, I am, but I wouldn't consider myself that now because I'm living somewhere for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The world has changed a lot, hasn't it? I mean, I would consider myself to have been a digital nomad for about 13 years.
Oh, wow.
And I kind of boast a little bit about this. I was a pioneer.
Were you?
One of those original guys who I had a job. I was a sports center anchor on ESPN. I had a really great US corporate job working for ESPN. And I got a little bit of fame, I guess, from that. And I was on TV. I was watching sport all day. But I made a conscious choice to actually resign from that position because even though I was working for ESPN, it was still corporate America. And for me, I didn't want to have a boss and I didn't want to get stuck in that corporate American system. And so I quit to go and be a digital nomad, I guess, or create businesses online. And candidly, I really struggled for about the first 18 months, 2 years. It was only after that amount of time that I hired a mentor, learned online marketing, and then ultimately created what is now Alcohol-Free Lifestyle, which was in 2015. And, even then for the first year, I generated only modest amounts of income. This is now I'm talking about 2015. And, but I actually, if I was to give myself a pat on the back, it would be, good on you for quitting the traditional career, not career in terms of a broadcaster, but the traditional route that most people take of getting a job and having benefits and being in corporate America and going off and taking a risk. Did you ever feel something like that? Did you go with that path?
Yeah, I definitely would not consider myself a pioneer, but that's crazy that you did that because that's the corporate America job, what you had, you could argue, right? So yeah, it's way more risky. I'm not really good with years. Like if someone said, where were you in 2017? I'm like, I don't know. But I know after college, I got that job at that agency. But that was like a hack, right? Because I was already working from my computer because the company was in the UK. And I worked with other content creators. So for me, it wasn't as risky, if that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I was the only kid in my college who was doing it. I can't talk to my parents about it. I can't talk to my friends about it. You're kind of just alone a little bit. You probably felt a little bit like that too, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, certainly all of the cultural conditioning, certainly from let's say my mother back in Australia, growing up, it was always get a job, get a job, get a job. And you know what? I followed that advice and I got great jobs. They were terrific.
Job, you could say.
I guess so. But ultimately, it was just this intuitive feeling that I wanted to create my own business and I was willing to suffer, I guess, for a couple of years. When I say suffer, I mean it hurts the ego when you're not making as much money as you were or as you would have been in a corporate job. It's not as safe. But it's panned out now. Like now I feel really great about that choice, but it was still a tough choice to make. And I know many of our listeners have that choice. We've got listeners in their 40s and 50s who have probably been in corporate jobs all their life, and maybe there's a part of them that's saying, oh, I wish I'd gone off and done my own thing. Or maybe, but here's the thing, you still can, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, dude, 100%. I think most people have that part, like that part of them that's like, what if I just quit everything and go to Thailand or Colombia or whatever? It's very rare that I meet someone who doesn't have that little, whatever the word is, little part of them, Yeah. And it's totally possible now. It's like more so than ever before, I would say.
Yeah. Increasing number of people are now actually leaving the US as an example and going and living in countries where their US dollars goes much further, right? Mm-hmm. Like here in Medellin, we're actually recording this in Medellin, Colombia. I mean, a US dollar can go a long way here. Once you get rid of rent, like rent's gone up certainly in Medellin, and so it's still not as high as what you might be paying for something comparable in the US. But then basic services, food, restaurants, is so much cost effective, right?
Of course. I mean, well, it's funny for me. I actually moved to Australia, when we just said that, and then Europe. So, because my ex-girlfriend was living in Europe at the time. So I was living there for about 4 or 5 years. But then this is one of the first times I went to a cost-effective country. And yes, you are correct. Oh my God. Like, dude, just like, I still can't believe how cheap some stuff is here. The dollar goes so much farther. And also, we're not in Bali or Thailand or any of these other places where it's like, you can live like a king in these places, but you don't have to earn like a king, You're in your 30s, but you made a conscious choice to stop drinking in your early 20s. Why was that? Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, the biggest thing with drinking was really just when I brought consciousness to drinking, that's when I really started to look at what I was actually doing. Like my definition of bringing consciousness to something is, what am I actually doing? Why am I doing it? And what is every single consequence of what I'm doing? And for me, when I kind of just looked at that, I mean, especially with drinking, it's like, oh my God, like, what am I doing here? Because everyone has a reason why they drink. Everyone says, at least in my experience, like, oh yeah, I just kind of like to relax. And these kind of vague answers, like, what does that mean, relax? Or it's like for like a social situation or whatever, but it's like, what are you actually doing? Ingesting a poison that's supposed to like make you feel better about something. And then the consequence is like, I mean, well, more than me, but for me, it's like, I just knew how I felt, So when I brought consciousness to it, that's when I really made the decision, this is stupid. I can't do this anymore.
How did you bring consciousness to it in your 20s? Because bringing consciousness to it is really kind of a phrase that people who are in their 30s or 40s would speak like, but not someone I would imagine in your early 20s. I mean, if I look back on my early 20s, I was out getting drunk and going to nightclubs and doing stupid stuff. How did you manage to be, I guess, mature or wise enough to bring consciousness to that?
Yeah, great question. And I was doing the same in my early 20s, I guess you could say. The area in my life that I really wanted to improve was just like socializing, not just with dating, but also just with going into a room with people who I respect and being able to communicate with them in a way where I didn't come across weird or stupid. I wanted to be confident and grounded, and I just realized that, okay, I need alcohol to do this. I can't go to a social venue and feel totally comfortable unless I'm drinking a lot. Like that was pretty clear to me. So I guess maybe you could say naturally I was a little bit conscious, but then I realized if I want to improve this, I can't be drinking while I want to get better at this. It's like learning how to drive a car when you're drinking, when you're drunk. Like that's stupid. Or maybe you'll get a little better, but not really. Yeah. And I guess I just got into personal development, making money online at a pretty early age. So I guess that's maybe not the greatest answer, but that's kind of what I would say.
What are the businesses that you have now?
So I have a consulting company. I have my YouTube channel, and recently I've become more of an investor because I've been generating more cash flow. So it's like, what do I do with all this money? It's a good problem to have, but honestly, yeah.
Do you feel like you would be a CEO, an owner, and an investor like you are today if you had continued with your drinking habits the way they were before you quit?
I think a better question is how good would I be at it? Like I could be one, I know CEOs who are working around the clock, they make very little money and hey, maybe I could be that. But in terms of like being able to make what I make while working the hours that I want to work, while feeling the way I want to feel, of course not. It's like, well, maybe there's someone who can do it, not me. I think most people cannot do it.
And how do you feel? You referenced how you feel doing it. How do you feel?
I feel better now than I did at 20. Like I can still remember, oh my God, dude, like I haven't thought about this in a while. I can still remember, like maybe I'm sensitive to hangovers or something, but I can remember waking up in the morning, not wanting to go to the gym, like barely being able to get out of bed, to be frank with you. And if I do, it's like to go for a walk. Like you can't solve complex problems when you're in that state. Or if you can, it's going to be a horrible solution. You can't do it. Like, and also if you want to get things quick in your life, which I've always valued time, I've been very aware that I am going to die. So you don't have forever to do the things that you want to do. And I also think it makes more sense to do things at certain periods in your life. Like for me, I wanted to be the person who's making money online and having a cool, interesting social life at a young age. So it's like, okay, well, I don't have forever to do that. Like people say, oh, I can live to be 80 or 90. It's like, yeah, but you can't be the young single person with money for that long. You don't actually have that much time to do that, Yeah.
Yeah, see, this kind of thinking is so, you're a decade ahead, I think, of most of the folks who listen to this show or who come to us for support at Alcohol Free Lifestyle. We have this 90-day stop drinking program. It helps entrepreneurs, executives, high achievers to have a better relationship with alcohol or quit entirely. But they're only now really focusing on this topic and thinking about it in their 40s or their 50s or in their 60s.
Yeah, but that's young enough to do it though, in my opinion.
It's absolutely young enough to do it. But what I'm saying is that it's rare, I think, that someone in their 20s would have that level of insight about time and about money and about health. So I'm commending you for that, which is extraordinary. And I would submit that you are a rare case, yes?
Yeah, probably, yeah. Yeah, I would say just in terms of my peer group, I would say I'm not the norm. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I'm a little ahead. Yeah. Or a lot ahead.
Folks that you were friendly with in your 20s that you know what are doing now, what are they up to now? And again, this is not like to suggest that you're better or they're worse, but just, as a comparison, I guess, just in life, what's your thoughts around where they are in their life, maybe emotionally or physically?
Well, that's the thing, because 30 is an interesting age. In my opinion, you can get away with a lot in your 20s, but I'm just starting to get to that age where it's like, okay, like you can really start to feel it. And yeah, I mean, I remember drinking with some friends, back in college, and they're still doing the same thing. If anything, they're doing worse things now. And you can see that, like, you can see it in their face, their energy. They're more stagnant. They're not like, I remember there's one friend who comes to my mind, like literally 7 years ago, he was like, oh, I'm only going to work at this company for like maybe another year. And 7 years later, he's still there and he's still saying the same thing, Yeah. But, if you continue with that lifestyle, it just has a negative effect. And especially for people in their 40s and 50s, if you've been like, it's not going to help you. It's only going to make things worse and worse. It's not going to help you get to your goals in anything. And you don't have to drink.
I know.
Yeah,
I've got a list here of 75 problems that alcohol caused business owners and CEOs. So just to set this up a little bit, we asked about 100 of our clients who come through our program and we help them stop drinking. And we asked them, before you joined us and you got clear from alcohol, what were the health pains you had? What were the wealth pains? What were the love pains? What were the happiness pains? Let me read a few out. We'll talk about wealth just for a second. Let me read a few out on the wealth. Lack of focus, procrastination, distracted, argumentative, irritable, coasting through life, divorce, apathy, low standards, poor leadership, impulsive spending. Did any of those resonate with you?
I would say, yeah, this is a long time ago though, so I'm trying to remember. Well, I remember waking up and having like my heart pumping in a weird way. I remember that at a very young age. And I'm like, that's not good. Impulsive spending. I mean, when I was drinking, I didn't really have any money. But you do. No, that's true though. You do. When you're drinking, oh yeah, whatever. So I guess I can, yeah.
You've always got money for the alcohol.
Exactly. Oh yeah, you always find a way to get it or whatever. Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. I would say those resonate, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your animation company, because I had a look on YouTube and there were some really interesting videos that your animation company produced, which have generated, at least as I looked this morning, close to 10 million views. There's another one that has close to 7 million views, 5 million views, 3 million views. I mean, that's no joke. Tell me a little bit about that company, and then I'll ask you a few questions about it.
Yeah. Well, I used to work for that agency, like I mentioned, and we would help content creators make more money from their content. And what I did was I would find a guy who had a website about surfing or something, and then we'd help them make more money. And I could just see how much money they were making. It was insane. Like my best client was a guy in Russia who had a meme website. It was a user-generated meme website, and he was making around 50 to 70,000 pounds a day from it, a day. And I could see it. And I'm like, oh my God. So I realized, okay, making content is cool and fun, and it can make you a lot of money. That's literally it. So that's kind of how I got into the YouTube stuff. I tried some other channels, which is a whole nother conversation, but the one that stuck was this animation thing. And I saw this niche of like self-help animation. And in my humble opinion, the videos were not amazing. And I just thought to myself, okay, I could make videos that are better than the rest, in my opinion. Kind of an arrogant thing to say, but I felt that, you know? And I went on Fiverr. I found a guy who did animations, and I just kind of worked at it for a couple of months, actually, and it grew very quickly. Yeah.
And so the YouTube channel is what, and what does it do exactly?
Yeah, so the name of the channel is Mitch Manley. And it's funny, I never liked the idea of being famous, so I never wanted to show my face. And really, like, and the banner is like ideas for a better life. I didn't really know what it was going to be honest with you. And I just wanted to make videos on topics that really helped me in my life, to be honest with you. It's such a simple answer, but that's the answer, you know?
Yeah, well, here are some of the titles of the YouTube videos that are on there. My worst breakup story, 9.7 million views. That's the most viewed video on the Mitch Manley YouTube channel. What's that about?
Yeah, well, you know, as a young man, and really any men out there, I think we've all gone through a breakup that has really hurt us. And, you know, that story, it's a story that's not about me. It's designed to be about, like, everyone can relate to that story, yeah? And that's why it's so popular, because, you know, in the story, there's a guy, the girl cheats on the guy's absolutely devastated, and you kind of have two options, right? One is you just, like, you know, sit in bed and die, and the other one is you use all that energy and you put it towards something. It's so cliche, but it's just the truth, you know? So in that video is about, there's two different stories. One guy just depressed, and the other guy basically makes his dreams come true from using that energy from the breakup. Yeah.
So if you're listening to this, you can go and check out this YouTube channel. It's called Mitch Manley, and you can watch these videos. The next most viewed video that you had is "This simple trick will make you motivated every day," and it has almost 7 million views. What's that about?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm trying to remember all of these topics. That video, it's basically a story about a guy who's in this horrible situation in Brazil. Like, the thing that really helped people was, like, well, got people to watch was I would tell these really, like, emotional stories, which would make the point much more, like, potent, as opposed to just saying, hey, be positive or whatever. You know, it's funny. I'm trying to remember what the point of that. I can't even remember exactly.
Well, you told me before we started recording here, it was regret.
Yeah, well, that's the one word that will motivate you to do anything. But that's actually, let's just start there. Like, for me, one of the biggest motivators is just thinking when I'm 80 or 90 years old, and then reflecting back on the time when I was 30 and thinking, oh, I should have done this. I should not have done this. And I'm always like death is always on my mind. It's literally, I'm not kidding. It's always like in the back of my head. And I just think that adds so much perspective to your life. You know, it's like, you're probably not going to get that mad if someone cuts you off in traffic when you're like, I am going to die in, you know, like 30 years or 40 years. That person's also going to die. Everyone I know is going to die in the next 100 years. And there's a brand new set of humans on Earth. You know, thinking about that just adds so much perspective, and it makes you do the thing that you want to do. You know, it's like people say like, oh, I don't care about what people think of you. And that's true. And they have all these ideas and ways to do that. But it's like, you're going to die. How is that not, like, everything's gone. Everything. Everyone you know is dead. So just do what you want to do. We're here for a short time.
Yeah, I remember some years ago, I used to really care what people thought of me.
Me too.
And I've realized that increasingly I've let that go.
Yeah.
I'm 48 as we're recording this. I'm going to be, 50 in 18 months. And my care factor about other people now is just dwindling. It's just reducing every day. I wouldn't say that it's completely gone. Like I still care what friends and family think of me. Sometimes I care what people on social media think, but for the most part, let's say 90% of it, I just don't care. And that's a very freeing feeling. And the fact that I'm going to be 50 in 18 months from when we're recording this makes me be more intentional with who I spend time with
100%.
and how I choose to live my life. And it's funny because I think I found a nice balance now between going quickly, but not going so quickly that I'm manic and that there's stress or that I need to do it, while simultaneously embracing the word surrender. So, surrender is a tough one for me because, I'm a man, I'm an entrepreneur, I have a goal, I want to get there in the shortest, most efficient time. And so I want to go quickly, but at the same time, I've got to surrender to the outcome or surrender to how something that I want happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say it's, I've thought a lot about this. Yeah. It's kind of like surrendering to what you're supposed to do. But I think a lot of people don't surrender to what they're supposed to do. Like, and when it comes to the alcohol stuff, it's like a lot of people should definitely sign up to your program. That's what they're supposed to do. Like the universe or whatever is putting this opportunity in front of them. And I'm sure there's a gentle nudge to do it, but they're not doing it. So yeah, it is this balance of like being aware of what you want to do when you want to do it, but also not like, being too forceful about it. But at the same time, kind of be forceful about it, Yeah, I can totally relate.
Yeah. It's an ongoing challenge, I guess I have. And also it shouldn't be a challenge. I should just surrender to it. Right. But it's this strange contradiction of I'm ambitious. I want to make things happen and I want to do it on the time zone that I expect, on the time frame that I expected to happen. And at the same time, just surrender, James, just surrender to the process.
Easier said than done. Yeah.
Easier said than done. Yeah. I remember in Q1 2023, we had a University of Washington scientific study done on our stop drinking process. And the university needed 120 study participants. And we were going to begin on February the 1st, 2023. And on December 20th, I had 0 participants, right? So I had about 40 days to try to get 120 people in the scientific study.
I love situations like this. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I've got to get manic. I've got to go. How am I going to do this? And I started to feel a little stressed and like, how am I going to do this? And then I just said to myself, James, do everything you can, but then surrender to the outcome. And I was like, okay. And so on December 20th, I picked up the phone and I phoned someone who I thought might join. And I had a conversation with him for about 20 minutes and he joined. And that was the first person. That was the first step. And every journey begins with a simple step. And then I remembered me interviewing the Hollywood actor Will Smith. I used to be a film journalist back in the day. I lived in Los Angeles in the late 2000s. And I interviewed Will Smith for the movie I Am Legend.
Oh, it's a good one.
And I was asking him, what's the definition of success? And one of the stories that he told me was how his father made him build a wall. All right, and put bricks there and build a wall for no apparent reason, just build a wall. Yeah. And he said to me, when you're focusing on a goal, have the vision of the outcome, but then, and this is using the wall analogy, lay every brick as perfectly as a brick can be laid. Yeah. And then you will have a wall, as opposed to every day be obsessing about the wall. And so I took that story and I applied it to this scientific study. And on December 20th, I went, okay, I'm just going to enroll someone today as perfectly as I can enroll someone in the study. And that was the first one. And then the next day I said, okay, now I'm going to enroll someone else as perfectly as I can enroll someone. And my team and I did that each day for the next 40 days. In fact, we hit the goal of 120 participants with 2 days to go, and we ended up getting 183 participants. So we broke through what we needed to get by 43 participants, ended up with 183. And the whole way along, I was just like, okay, let's not sit in our hands and go slowly. Let's move. Yeah. But also at the same time, simultaneously, I was saying surrender to how it happens. Like I trusted that we were going to get the result, but I didn't know how we were going to get the result. And I said, just surrender to that. And that was a really interesting lesson for me in going quickly or not going slowly, but also surrendering to the outcome.
100%. I would say whenever I'm trying to think of, I can't think of a situation recently where it's like I need to make a certain amount of money or get something very, very quickly. However, if I ever do feel the inspiration to, let's say, I think for me, money's a good example. It's like, okay, let's make some money to do this thing, right? For me, it's like surrender to the process of it and then surrender to the outcome, if that makes sense. Because it's like, because it's like if you have a process that has worked in the past and you know it works, all you can do is go to that process. It's like, but the problem is when people don't have a process, that's when you should be stressed. It's like for the alcohol stuff too, right? It's like if you don't have a process, like you should not, I don't think you should be comfortable because like, well, you don't know what you're supposed to do. Or it's like if you want to lose weight or something like that. It's like if you know how to lose weight, like, all right, well, eat this amount of calories, blah, blah, blah. You just kind of do it. And then, you can't control everything. So you have to surrender to the outcome.
Yeah. The process is super important because I guess, there was that famous program, The Secret, which is if you manifest, if you think you desire something enough, it'll just come to you. And to a degree, I was in alignment with that concept, except a lot of people just thought, well, if they just sit there and wish for $1 million, they'll get $1 million.
That's part of the process is the secret, but that's not the entire process. That's a part of it. Yeah, of course, no one's visualizing who you want to be, what you want to get. I don't think there's anyone who's going to say that's a bad idea. Don't do that. But obviously you can't just like, what, I'm supposed to sit here and like, it's ridiculous. Like you need steps and that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sure in your program, you probably, I don't even know, but I would assume you talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One of your other videos that had, almost 3 million views was how to wake up at 5:30 a.m. and be excited. Now, you told me before we started recording here that you don't wake up at 5:30 a.m.
Not anymore. I did.
You did? Tell me about that.
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, when I was, there was a point in my life where, going back to the other topic, I wouldn't say I was forcing things, but I really wanted a certain outcome. Like when it came to growing my YouTube channel, I was obsessed with it. I had a girlfriend at that time, and my entire life was grow on YouTube, hang out with my girlfriend, and basically go to the gym, right? Which is somewhat healthy, but maybe not. And when it comes to waking up early in the morning, the thing that everyone would talk about is like, okay, so get up early, go take a cold shower, make your bed right away. But the thing that actually worked for me was doing something that I kind of liked. So there was a show on Netflix, I can't remember the name, but the entire show was like, they would go to like these really fancy villas around the world, like in Spain and Thailand, and all of these places. And I just like real estate. My parents sold real estate my whole life. So whenever I would watch that show, even for like 10 minutes, it would actually get me kind of inspired and I'd feel good about doing these things. Cause that created, like seeing it was like a chemical reaction in my body of energy. I'm like, okay, now I feel more inspired as opposed to like this, rise and grind mentality where you just hate everything. I think that's kind of, well, I don't know. For me, it didn't work. So I would literally get up at 5:30 in the morning, watch Netflix for 10 to 15 minutes, then do what I was supposed to do. If that makes sense. Yeah.
What time do you wake up now?
Now, probably more like 9 or so. I'm in a little bit more of a casual. I'm going to re-enter like business growth mode in early 2024.
What time do you go to sleep?
I go to sleep at around midnight, I would say, at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are getting 8 hours more or less of sleep.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Sleep's super important. Oh my God.
Have you read the book The Power of When by Michael Bruce, sleep doctor?
Not.
No. So he talks about there being different types of sleepers. So people who go to sleep after midnight, people who go to sleep at 7 p.m., people who go to sleep at 10. And he talks about humans each having a certain chronotype. And so based on your chronotype, that dictates when you should go to sleep for optimal sleep, like what time. It seems like when you were getting up at 5:30, you were going to sleep what time? 9:30, 10:30?
Yeah.
Okay, but now you've shifted it. So you've almost like shifted chronotype to go to sleep after midnight.
It's better now. I was it's funny, like depending on when you meet me, it's almost like a different kind of person a little bit. Like back then I was so obsessed about just reaching my goals with YouTube and my consulting company. But when I kind of got what I wanted, because I've always been very aware of the exact, like I've always thought about how much do I want to make, how many hours do I want to work, and what do I want to be doing? And what kind of impact do I want to have? When I like reach those things for the most part, I kind of just lean back, literally. And I kind of just, let's say, revert back to what my natural circadian rhythm is or chronotype is. Yeah. But back then I was like, go mode. This was probably like, 5 years ago or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in that go mode.
Yeah. It's an interesting place. It's not sustainable, I would say, for me, but it's good to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being in like being in the hustle, go mode is not sustainable. Certainly, for me, it gets very tiring very quickly. And even though you can have huge impact in a short amount of time, I think if you just went a little bit slower, you'd actually have bigger impact over a slightly longer period of time. Yeah,
and going back to what I talked about being conscious, I do think to some extent when you're in that extreme forceful state, it kind of gets in the way of consciousness, let's say. I've thought a little bit about this. I can't articulate this point perfectly, but there's something about being more laid back when you're leaning back where you can see everything a little bit more clear. As opposed to, because when you're forceful, I think you kind of get in your own way a little bit. And you can get a lot done in that time, but it goes back to what we're talking, such a nuanced point of like the forcing things and surrendering. It's like that middle ground, the Tao, you could say, right? It's like right there. That's when you can see everything and you're moving at a good pace.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because in my business, in this stop drinking business, the Alcohol-Free Lifestyle podcast, we've got a YouTube channel. We help people to stop drinking. There's lots of moving elements, and I have team members, staff who are based in Philippines, Bali, Australia, the US, Peru, Colombia. There's a lot of moving parts. And sometimes in that business, I feel like I get stuck in the weeds and I'm like talking to people in different time zones and I'm in too many things and I'm working in the business. Then there are other times where I can go 2 or 3 weeks where the only thing I really do in the business is think and take a few meetings, Zoom meetings with staff, with some clients. But for the rest of the time, let's say 90% of those 2 or 3 weeks, I'm just walking around wherever I am, going to the gym, eating well, and just thinking. And I submit that time, those 2 or 3 weeks where I'm not really doing much in the business and it's just working the way that I hope that it is, I'm actually thinking so much more strategically, which ultimately is going to have the business create a far bigger impact in the world and reach more people than if I was go and hustle every single day.
Yeah, well, you're zooming out, right? Because, dude, I love the term lost. I say the exact thing to my clients for consulting. The biggest thing is people get lost in the weeds, which is exactly what you described, right? Talking to the VA in the Philippines, this sales rep, like you're just so in the weeds and you can't, on a macro level, you can't really accomplish that much, in my opinion. And it's also why, to slightly change the topic a little bit, like, in my business, I've been so reluctant to hire a big team because it's like, I don't love the idea of managing people. And in terms of what I'm doing now, it's like, I only have like maybe 3 to 5 employees. It's not that much, right? But again, like I don't have to get lost in the weeds because I haven't created that many weeds, but I'm sure some systems business guy like, oh, just build a system for this and this. But it's like, okay, bro, I don't know. But you got to zoom out if you want to get stuff done,
The more folks that we've hired here at Alcohol-Free Lifestyle, the more I've felt like I'm a glorified psychologist.
Yeah.
I'm managing people's egos, managing people's feelings. People get triggered. I mean, really, the more people you have, you become a family, and families have triggering moments, right? Like
the most triggering moments is family.
Yeah. And so the person who needs the psychologist the most is me, as the leader. So I'm not sitting here going, oh, because I've got so many people, I own the business that I know best. I don't know best. But one of the things that we're about to do at Alcohol-Free Lifestyle, we haven't done it yet, is actually I am hiring a psychologist to be available for all of the team members. So when they do get triggered or they're struggling, or if they're doing really well, they can speak to someone on a weekly basis and get support. There's a TV show called Billions, and it's a show filled with traders, who are trading millions of dollars at a time. They have a full-time psychologist or psychiatrist. I think it's a psychologist in the show. And their traders go and talk to this psychologist for help with their trading. And I looked at that and I thought, that's really smart. And as we've grown, Alcohol-Free Lifestyle, we've grown up thinking, wow, people are getting triggered increasingly. There's more, there's different egos and different personalities coming into the business. The chances of people being triggered and underperforming, or actually even performing even better, is now gone up with the more different personalities. So I'm going to run that experiment. We'll see how it goes. I don't know how it'll go yet because I haven't implemented it. But in theory, I think, well, why not? Why not, have a staff psychologist who's there to support everyone?
It's funny. My favorite part about that story is just how much you value coaching. Like, think of the people out there who don't even have a mentor. Like you, I'm sure you have many business mentors and not even just for business, but it's like, I value coaching so much. I'm going to hire a coach for my employees. And there's people out there who just don't even have a coach. Isn't that crazy?
Well, it is crazy, but I'll tell you this, it's fascinating, we human beings, because we will speak to prospective clients who are exploring the idea of getting our support with stopping drinking. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how much logic 100%. We can present to them in terms of their drinking might be costing them $100,000 a year. Yep. It might be sending them towards a divorce. Their triglycerides might be really high. Their resting heart rate may be high. Their blood pressure may be high. They may be headed for an early grave. It doesn't matter how much logic we present to them and say, hey, we can support you with this and this is why you should stop drinking. They will still, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, still decline that offer of support. Yeah. And they'll still go back to the way it is, which is just drinking the way it is. Yep. And so I value coaching. I understand the importance of it. And I'll say this, no Olympian ever went to the Olympics without a coach. No. Right? They invest in coaches. They invest in coaching. But it's shocking to me how many prospective clients of ours decline our services because they think they don't need a coach, that they can go and stop drinking on their own. They're going to use willpower and motivation this time. It's almost like they think they must be broken if they have to pay for coaching. Yeah. Wow. I can talk a lot about this topic. Well, I think you and I are probably a little bit similar, very logical. You're like, okay, well, if I want to get this outcome and I see other people getting the outcome that I want in this short amount of time, therefore I'm doing something that's not optimal. I think the first thing I would say is just people's relationship with money and time. That's the biggest thing, right? Because it's like, for me, again, I think about dying all the time. It's like, well, time is the only resource we can't get back. It's the one thing we don't own. And because you can always make more money. Like, I could always make more money. If I invest like $20,000 more into a coach, I can make that money back. If I spend 3 months trying to get an outcome, I cannot get those 3 months back. And the ironic thing about the alcohol stuff is if they drink for 3 months, that's going to shorten their lifespan. So it's even worse for what you're doing, which is crazy, man. And yeah, in terms of like how to reach people. Yeah. I mean, logic definitely does not always work in terms of like, because for me, it's all about the money, right? I'm like, well, it's been this amount of time. You haven't been able to make it. And the thing about drinking too, because it's like, it's not just about the financial cost of it. It's also the energy cost of it. Like it is affecting your marriage by definition. Like if your energy is lower, it is like, that affects everything. Every part of your life is impacted by this habit that you're choosing not to fix. Right? Yes. Yeah. And again, yeah, that's funny. I'm really starting to think about your offer now. It's such an intense thing. Like, this is your health. If you don't have health, you have nothing. And it doesn't matter how many times we say that. For many people, they still won't take the action. And I get it. I mean, I'm not mocking. Me neither. I'm not criticizing. I'm not condemning. There are folks who've been listening to this show for years, probably. Yeah. And they're probably thinking right now, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. And in their head, they're logically thinking, it makes no sense that I continue drinking. And they're also probably thinking, it makes no sense that I continue trying to stop drinking on my own. Mm. And they're probably thinking, I should absolutely enroll in one of Alcohol-Free Lifestyle's stop drinking programs and get support. And then this podcast episode will end. Yep. And they will just go back doing what they're doing, and they still won't take action. So it doesn't matter that the case that we've argued to the jury, right? It just human nature, the way it is, we still won't do it. I guess my answer is think back to the time when you were kind of like that in the sense, because the way that I've thought about this, it's sales marketing, right? And frame like, okay, what was going through my head when I was younger, where I was resistant to investing into something that will get me the thing that I really want to get.
I guess, but that's my question for you. Is there a time like that in your life?
Oh yeah. My first mentor was $25,000 to hire my first mentor in business.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the money. In fact, let me rephrase that. I had the money sitting back in my Australian bank account in Australian dollars, but I didn't have the money in US dollars. And this was 25,000 US dollars. And on October 31st, 2013, I finally made the decision to pay this US-based mentor 25,000 US dollars, which at the time was about 32,000 Australian dollars.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember being on the desktop version of my Australian bank account, ready to hit send to this mentor that I was possibly going to hire. And I remember my heart was pounding and my finger was on the mouse and I'm like, all I got to do is just press this send and that's going to transfer this money from my Australian bank account over to this guy's bank account. And I was so nervous because I didn't know what the outcome was. I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't know if I was just slaughtering my money.
Yep.
My father was like, who is this US guru that you're going to send your money to? Like he was so skeptical. And I remember I was so nervous. I was so timid. And then I finally went click and I sent the money. And I'll tell you, about 2 seconds after I hit click and the money transfer confirmation had come through, I felt so powerful. Yeah. Like incredibly powerful.
And
I was
free
like,
and free.
And free.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even got any of the coaching or the mentoring yet.
Yeah.
Something came over me where 2 seconds later, I was like, I've just changed my life. It was almost like I've already got the results of working with the mentor. And candidly, I worked with him for 18 months and it was extraordinary. It was terrific. And a lot of the things that I learned from him, I've implemented in an alcohol-free lifestyle. And now we've impacted tens of thousands of people's lives who've now reduced or stopped drinking as a result of a lot of the business and marketing techniques that I learned from my mentor.
Yep. Yeah. Well, the biggest thing with that is it's like what you did too is you changed your identity in that moment. Right? Like you can change your identity with one click, literally, because now you are the kind of person who invests $25,000 or X percentage of your net worth, whether it's all of it, into getting the thing that you want to get. You just doing that alone puts you in a completely different category of most people, you know? Like because you changed who you are as a person. And something that I talk a lot about too is like, well, who are you as a person? Are you the kind of person who just like, you know, like you want to get this thing that's a main priority in your life, but I'm going to go ahead and not try to get like it has energy to it, right?
Yes.
And even when it comes to like attracting people of the opposite sex, or even like if you're in a marriage, or even connecting with other respectful men or whatever, it's like your aura. Like I have the aura of I value my time and I will invest large amounts of money into getting the thing that I say is the most important thing to my life. And if you're not doing that, then you're not that kind of person. And again, going back to bringing consciousness here, it's like, well, who are you actually? And I think and not to get too intense here, I think if people really looked in the mirror and looked at their actions, not what they say, they'd be almost like I think they would be disgusted with themselves. I'm not saying I'm disgusted with you, but I'm saying I think you would be. Like you would not be happy with yourself. You're probably not being a good role model for your kid or your future kids or your grandkids. Like I even think like for me, when I do have a kid, which I think I will at some point, like I'm being a role model for my future son now. So when I can talk to my son, I'd be like, when I was 30, I was doing this. In my early 20s, I was doing this. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely makes sense. And you know, you touched on an interesting point there. It's an identity shift. Yeah. And change can feel hard and change can feel messy. And even though it's positive change, and we probably know that taking this action will transform our lives for the better, it still feels so scary that on many occasions, we don't end up taking that step and we don't change and we stay stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's this saying, it's like, it gets to a point where like the pain of not doing it outweighs the pain of doing it. But the thing about me is like, I'll just look at people who I want to be like, and I'll just say, okay, what do they say about this? And they'll just say, yeah, it's going to be super uncomfortable. It's going to be horrible. I'm like, okay, well, I guess it's the way it's supposed to be. But I'm really logical. I actually have trouble relating with some in terms of my marketing. I'm like, okay, just they're not like you. Just you can't be so logical about it. I'm like, okay, but it's hard for me sometimes. You know,
most successful marketing, if you look at all the big brands, don't rely on logic. It's creating an emotion.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I guess like Yeah, for me, it's like, who do I want to be like? Or if I want a certain amount of money, or if I want a certain lifestyle, or just if I want to feel a certain, like I hired a holistic health coach. I think he charges like $3,000 a month or something like that. And he's so healthy. Like you watch a video from this guy, this guy's energy is on another planet. I'm like, I want that. And then I think if I had that energy, how would that impact my business? How would that impact my relationship with my girlfriend, my family, and my friends? It's like, is that not worth $3,000? Of course it is.
It's interesting. There's a professor out of the University of Sydney, Professor Nicola Newton at the University of Sydney says, Professor Nicola Newton at the University of Sydney says, on average, people wait 10 years to get help with their drinking habits because of the stigma. 10 years. Most people wait to get help with their drinking habits because they're worried about what people are going to think about them if they stop drinking. That's
sorry. They're worried about what they're going to think about them. Like their friends are going to think if they, that's the wrong. You're around the wrong. They're not even your friends.
They're not even your friends if they're giving you a hard time about not drinking.
Yeah.
And the fact that people wait a decade to get help, a decade, that is crazy. I mean, we're talking about time. You can't get time back. Most people listening to this show, most people listening to the podcast will wait 10 more years to get professional help with their drinking habits. They will continue to listen to the show and they'll continue to drink and they'll continue to do mostly ineffective methods of using willpower, motivation, trying a 30-day challenge here or there.
It's all ineffective if they haven't gotten the result.
If you could have got the result, you would have. You haven't. So whatever you're doing isn't working.
Yeah. And the funny thing, it's not funny at all, actually, but it's like it's 10 years and they're probably taking 10 years off of their life from doing that too. So it's worse.
And it's also influencing their children who are seeing mummy and daddy drinking the way that they're drinking. And by the way, you might be just drinking in a socially acceptable manner. You don't need to be an alcoholic with your drinking to influence your children's drinking habits.
And this is bringing consciousness to it. Like, what is every single consequence, right? And people, people, in my opinion, people just hate bringing consciousness to things because it makes them so accountable for everything. And I mean, most people just hate being accountable. And for something like drinking, it's extra sensitive.
Yeah.
Because the consequences are so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm in 3 different business masterminds, which I pay an annual fee to be in. I have a personal trainer who holds me accountable, and I have a personal development coach who I speak with every single week. So I have 2 coaches, and then I have 3 communities of coaches. Yeah. So I have 5 different professional networks or coaches that I invest my time and my money in to literally hold me accountable. Now, often the advice that I'm getting or the mentorship I'm getting, I could have got for free off of YouTube, right? Off a YouTube video.
Yeah.
But the fact that I'm paying for it holds me accountable to show up and to listen intently and then be accountable to take actions based on the coaching and the mentorship that I get. Yeah. That is how I move forward in life. That is how I grow. It's not what you know, it's what you do. And me paying is a symbol of seriousness, and it holds me accountable to actually take the actions that will help me grow.
Yeah, of course. And I totally agree. But to make it even simpler, it's just like let's say you want to lose 3 pounds, okay? It doesn't take 3 months to lose 3 pounds if you know what you're doing. So if you're seeing people like testimonials or whatever, if people losing 3 pounds, let's say in 3 weeks, and it's taking you longer, then by definition, the free information is not working for you. There's not any more of a discussion after that. It's not working, period. And of course I agree with you, but it's like, I'm so logical. It's like, but it's not working. People will say to me, I've invested $60,000 into other coaching. I worked with this extremely famous person. And I'm like, well, did it work for you? It's like, I could be in a room with Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, whoever. And it's like, well, clearly that mastermind didn't work for me. You can't just give up on coaching. It didn't work, period. And hey, think about why it didn't work. And that's what you're talking about, right? Because obviously people they don't value free information. They won't take action on it. And I have a ton of coaches as well. But it's like, it's just not working. Just remove all the mental chatter. It's not working, which is fine as long as you make the change, Yeah. Yeah.
Change can feel hard.
Sure can.
And that's why we get stuck. But for those who have, leaned into the resistance and taken that action, which has resulted in change, I salute you. I tip my hat to you, sir or ma'am, wherever you are listening.
I think it's
in the world.
accepting it too. Just accept, like, okay, yes, it is going to be uncomfortable, as opposed to like pretending that it won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mitch Wiggins, thank you so much for joining us here today. Where can our listener and viewer find more information about you, the animation company, the coaching?
Yeah. Honestly, I would just say on Instagram at Mitch Wiggins. That's a great place to start for now. So
what a very unique kind of cool Instagram handle you came up with. It's not like King Mitch Wiggins or like Sir Mitch
Hey, maybe
Wiggins.
I'll change it. You know, who knows? Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Congratulations on getting power over your drinking habits in your 20s and in the 30s. I know it's going to serve you well. I know we're talking about wealth and things like that and money, but just health, stress, anxiety levels, conscious.
Yep.
You're already, 10 years ahead of most people in the world. So I salute you, sir.
Thank you. And I guess I'll say, if you don't have your health, you have nothing. So let's fix that first.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate it, mate.
Thank you so much.